Hey my friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're looking at the 2016 Toyota Prius ECO. It's all new, completely redesigned for this year, and this is the version that's supposed to have the extra special gas mileage. So does it? Now, unless you're blind or maybe you lived under a rock, you've noticed the fact they redesigned this car. It's completely different. And while the Prius has always been different, it's always been unique, it's always been a standout with its iconic shape and styling, it's definitely more so now. Nobody can deny that, whether you like it, whether you hate it, whether you just don't really have an opinion. This is definitely different, and it really goes to everything you see here. This whole front fascia, it's got a very bold face, a lot of really deeply sculpted angles. It's got headlights that look like eyes now. It definitely looks like it's making a face at you for sure. Now, because this is an Eco, it's based on the lower trim grades. Down here in that fascia, you'll see we don't have any fancy fog lights or anything like that. You do have the highlighted blue emblem there that's always part of this. Now, the wheels on the Eco here are actually kind of a basic wheel. They're wheel covers, but they're actually over an alloy wheel. It's something a little bit different. They're 15-inch on this one, meant to really sort of offer up the highest possible fuel economy. As you know, if you get into the other trim grades, you can get larger wheels on this, so look a little cooler. These are a very basic wheel. Out here at the back of the Prius, the styling innovations continue. You've got a pretty pronounced hip line now that starts about midway down the side and really comes up here and wraps into this taillight, which is probably the most distinctive part of this design. Especially at night, you have this sort of boomerang shaped LED light up that really has a very distinctive look. And the overall shape of this thing is just really hard to describe without just simply showing it to you and let it do the talking. You also have the floating roof design here, which has become very popular with Japanese brands here in the last year or so. Lexus has a vehicle with it, Nissan's got a couple with it, and you're going to see more of that, I suspect. Out here at the back, it's all new design as well, but one thing that is a carryover on this Prius from previous generations is the glass light that's here in the rear hatch. And basically it's there so you can see out of the rear view mirror when you're sitting in the car. If this were a solid panel all the way up to this pretty high deck lid, you wouldn't be able to see very much out the back window. So the Prius has always had this glass right here that it actually enhances your vision through the rear view mirror. And it's now sort of got this concave look to it. It's quite different, yet very much the same. The interior of the new Prius is pretty much the space-age place you've always expected it to be, only now even more so. And what I like about what they've done here is now it has more of a symmetrical design, and I like this this light and airy feeling that the light color in this particular one has. It's got the two-tone with the light tan and the charcoal. You can get it all black, and you can get other colors in here. The only thing as far as the styling and design that's not quite hitting me right is these white bezels that are here and there. And if you get the interior that's got the white trim to go along with that, that makes a little bit more sense. But here with tan and maybe some of the other colors, I'm just not sure that white's really my gig. But it is futuristic nonetheless, in sort of a Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica kind of way. Now, also futuristic, and always has been, is the center-mounted instrument cluster up here. That's something Toyota's done long before the Prius, and the Prius has just always had it. And now it's actually been expanded quite a bit. It now has two digital screens up there that are color. They're fully customizable, so you can use the controls here on the steering wheel and choose pretty much what you want to see up there, and it's very easy to read. You get used to it being in the center. If you're not used to that, you're always used to having a standard instrument cluster here in front of you. That's not so hard to get used to. The infotainment system that's here, this is a base vehicle, so it's got a base system in it, and so I've just got AM, FM, CD, and it does have some of the N-Tune functionality. It's very easy to use. The touchscreen works very well. It's the new that it looks like a piece of glass. It's sort of a frameless design. It's very pleasing, and this has the climate control here also. It's all gloss plastic. One nice thing is this piano black here has a little bit of a metallic to it, so it doesn't look like it's dusty all the time. It's got just enough of a sintered look to it that when the dust does get on it, you don't notice it so much. The other thing this car has that I like is the cloth seats. This is an interesting cloth. It's got sort of a very diamond checked pattern to it. It's not just cloth. It's actually sort of a premium cloth in here, and I like that a lot. You can also get Softex, which is Toyota simulated leather in the upper trim grades. They're comfortable, I think. They are manually adjustable here in the Eco, but once you find your space, you're good. And of course, the driving position, good. Plenty of space, and the light color does play into that feeling of spaciousness. The console down here, pretty basic, but it's all one piece. It works. I like the fact that it's got a phone space. It's just right there. You lay it down. In the upper trim grades, you can get the Qi wireless charger for your phone if it's compatible. If you need to plug it in, the plugs for it, you have both a 12 volt and a USB and auxiliary port right down here. You sort of have to reach the cords across your cup holders. That is the only strange thing. Otherwise, this is pretty well laid out. The rear seat passenger compartment on this new Prius is actually slightly larger than it was before. You still have a pretty low seating position, but these seats are pretty comfortable. There aren't a lot of amenities back here. There aren't any adjustments, but the good news is the legroom's pretty good. Now, I always have my seats about halfway between forward and back, so they could come back just a little more, and I think I'd be okay for space. The headroom is actually quite good, even though this does have this sloping roofline. You've got a fold-down armrest here in the center, as well as a flat seat for reasonably comfortable seating for 5 back here. The rear cargo area, like before, benefits from a 60-40 split fold-down rear seat that gives more space, though not a flat load floor. There's now much more space than the old Prius at 27.4 cubic feet in the Eco. It is slightly less on models with the nickel hydride battery pack. For reasons not entirely clear, models with a smaller and more efficient lithium-ion battery such as our Eco are missing a spare tire, getting only a can of sealant and an air pump. Useless if you get more than a small puncture. We're told it's for weight savings. Of all the changes they've made on this new Prius, this interior is really one of the best ones. It's comfortable, I like the way it looks, and it's of quality. It gets 5 out of 5 stars. Under the hood for 2016 is an entirely new 1.8-liter Atkinson cycle engine that's been redesigned for more efficiency, mated to the latest generation of Toyota's hybrid synergy drive continuously variable transmission, or CVT. It has a redesigned transmission, new electric motors, and a more compact drive control unit that we're told all result in better refinement, better performance, and better efficiency. Horsepower is now 121. So as we just learned, this actually has quite a bit less horsepower than the previous Prius. In fact, it's quite a bit, 134 down to 121. But when I went to the launch last year, Toyota tells us that horsepower just isn't that important to Prius customers, and I think they're probably right. What is important, they said, was refinement. It was how smooth the engine is, how quiet it is, and honestly, the last Prius really was a rough beast. So in my week with driving this thing, what I found is that they've really improved this thing. This engine is so much quieter, is so much smoother, and the transitions when it goes from electric to gas power and back and forth, when that engine shuts off and turns on, you barely notice it. In fact, I've had to have the energy monitor on the dash so that I really knew what was going on. And that's simply because it's imperceptible, it's innocuous. And that's a great thing, because that's what made the old Prius kind of a punishment for me to drive. It was that rough agricultural thing that went on that made me feel like I was driving a third world contraption, and that's not going on here at all. This is by far the quietest, most refined hybrid I think I've ever driven, and that's saying a lot, because most of the better hybrids I've driven were V6s that had a smoother engine, and the Prius has always been the worst, where it had this leaf blower sort of weed eater sound to it when you really pushed it. And you'll note that I haven't really been showing you the acceleration thing and really sort of demonstrating how powerful it is, because it just doesn't matter here. This is a car that most people are going to buy because of the fuel economy. And that gets us to the other side of the coin here. This car, I'm told by Toyota, we were all told that it was supposed to achieve about 10% better fuel economy in this new generation than the old one. Now, the old one wasn't bad at all, so the expectation here was we were going to get well into the 50s, and this one, the Eco, it's rated at 56 mpg combined. 56, that's even quite above the regular Prius and the entire line. Well, in my week with it, combined city highway, I've only been able to achieve 49. The only thing I would say is the air conditioner's been on 100% of the time because it's 100 plus degrees outside, but whenever I've tested a Prius, that's always been the case. And in previous Priuses, I've always gotten 49, 50, 51. So my anecdotal evidence here is that this isn't really getting any better fuel economy than the last generation Prius, which is kind of disappointing because this is not only supposed to get 10% better, but this is the Eco, which is even supposed to do better than that. Something to look at. So overall, when I look at scoring this powertrain, the refinement levels are so much better that it overshadows the fact that it's not getting that great a fuel economy. It still gets 4 out of 5 stars. One thing I wanted to note here is that this being the Eco, it's rated at 4 more mpg than the other models at 56 combined. There are no differences in the engine or drivetrain, just a more efficient battery. Oddly though, the Prius 4 and Ford Touring have the same lithium-ion battery, yet they're rated at the lower 52 mpg combined. The only effective difference between the Eco and them is 70 pounds of weight savings afforded by the elimination of options like power seats and larger wheels. So we've established that they've really improved this car with the powertrain. They've also improved this car with the handling. This is on an all-new chassis platform this year, the Toyota Global architecture that's now going to underpin most all of their compact cars. And that upgrade brings a lot of great things to the Prius that it didn't have before. One of them is a double wishbone rear suspension. The other one is the latest design philosophy for handling and overall feel. And what that brings to the Prius is a new driving dynamic. It no longer feels dead to the world when you're in curves, when you go back and forth from left to right, when you stop and go. It actually has a little bit of, well, it feels like it actually wants to. It doesn't fight you. It doesn't feel like it just wants to go park, right? The old Prius was never fun to drive, and it wasn't always about the powertrain. It was about the fact that it just hated everything you ever asked it to do. This one, the steering's got a nice weight and balance to it. When you do put it into a curve, it just feels good, and it's quieter and it's safer. The new chassis is a lot stiffer, and so it performs better in crash tests, and we'll get to that here in a couple of minutes. But they've really improved this, and it's also much quieter. We already discovered that with the engine, but that also translates to road noise, it translates to wind noise. This is the quietest, most solid, almost close to Lexus feeling Prius I've ever been in. The chassis gets 4 or 5 stars. The Toyota Prius has always been one of Toyota's examples of quality, and here the new one continues the Toyota way in every way. Fit and finish are great, interior materials are excellent, but the doors still slam hollow and tinny. Quality feel score comes in at 4 or 5 stars. Safety in the new Prius is rated by the IIHS as top of class, now achieving top Safety Pick Plus honors, with good ratings across the board in all of their tests. The Prius also now offers superior levels of crash prevention systems as an option. Well friends, wrapping it up for the Prius Eco, I gotta say I really think they've improved this car quite a bit in terms of what it's like to live with. The handling's a lot better, it feels of better quality, and the performance, it's about the same, but when you sit in this car and live in it, it's just a lot more comfortable. Not nearly as dead to the world as it used to be when you're driving it, and that's saying a lot. What I will say though, the disappointment in this car was the fuel economy, because the last generation Prius, well, they told us this was going to have 10 or 15% better than that, and at 49 mpg, that's what I was achieving with the last generation Prius in my regular drives with this thing. And so not only does this car not really get any better than the last generation Prius in my tests, but this is the Eco. It was supposed to get 56. We're not anywhere near that. So we talked about some of the mechanical differences that create the Eco, and in my opinion, I don't see how they arrive at getting that much better fuel economy out of a couple little tweaks they've done. If it was a different engine or something like that, yeah, I could see that, but I'm just not buying it. So in that way, if you're torn, if you're going, gee, should I get the Eco, not the Eco? Don't worry about it. I mean, get a Prius, get something nice, get whatever you like, because I just don't see the Eco really bumping that number up a lot. So I put value at 4 stars, and when you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at 4 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Now, if you're a hybrid enthusiast, you've got a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pike. Not only is there a more efficient Prius coming, the new Prius Prime, the plug-in hybrid, that'll be along for 2017, but Hyundai and Kia, they're also entering the game of a dedicated hybrid model. They've got the new Kia Niro, they've got the Hyundai Ioniq, and those cars are going to bring a lot of exciting stuff to the table that are really going to give the Prius a run for its money when it comes to competition. And competition's good because it always makes everybody do a better job. So things are going to get pretty exciting here in the next year when it comes to hybrids. And so in that way, I invite you to stay tuned here at Test Driven TV. Click on the link right here and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we'll be test driving all those cars as well as all the other test drives we do each week, plus the new videos that come out, well, virtually every other day. There's always something new. So stay tuned.